So as you know, I was bulking out a third of the rare grain seeds, and I've had some failures with my crop. So I'm now speaking to Rich about the third of the rare seeds that he's been bulking out and getting an update from him on how those are doing. So hi Rich.
All right.
Do you want to tell me something about your farm, where you're based?
Okay, yeah. We're based kind of in between Hay and Wye and Bilth and Brecon. Just below, there's a large area of common land called the Beggins. So we're just below that. We're about 200 metres up. Small farm. Until now, we just had kind of livestock. So this is we're also growing 3 varieties of wheat, and then up on the edge of this, and that's over about 3 acres, and then on the edge of that we're growing the bulking plots that we're talking about.
Why were you interested in bulking out the rare seeds? Because you volunteered to do it. What was your interest?
Well, I just think it's great to get old varieties back out of the gene banks and having them being grown again. I suppose I'm quite interested in, like on our farm. I was really interested in the fact there used to be a lot of grains grown on the farm, probably until about, I don't know, 60 years ago or something. Used to grow a lot of oats, barley, and wheat even, and they used to make their own bread from the wheat. I know that. Because there's an old lady still alive who lived here in the 50s, and she remembers doing that. So I kind of think, well, it can be done. So that's like the overall picture. I mean, oats in particular, I would equally like to get oats, wheat, or barley out of the gene banks that used to be grown in Wales. But I think there are only really oats in any number in the gene banks, is what I understand. So. And I just think it's really interesting that all these different, every county used to have their own sort of variety of oats that was locally adapted to each area, and kind of just reminds me of cider apples, and it's the same sort of thing. And I just think it's a shame we've lost that diversity, and it'd be brilliant to help to get that going again. And whether they can be useful in combating climate change. Like I've been to talks where there's people doing breeding now, sort of crossing some of the old varieties with the modern varieties, and I don't know, that all seems all very well, but I think it's great if we can actually just get the old varieties growing again. But whether they can be productive enough for modern day use and so on, and work with modern machinery, it's all a bit of an experiment, I suppose.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the third of the rare seeds that you have.
Yes.
Then. So my third have done really badly. How are your third of the rare seeds doing?
Well, again, they got off to a good start. The way we planted them was a contractor ploughed and drilled our field for the main wheat crop, and then we left. So he drilled all that. But he left. Well, he actually left about I don't know, it was about 6 meters, probably a whole pass down one side, and then we had to drill that last bit of our wheat crop. We sowed that by hand, and then we kept this meter strip for the bulking, and we sowed that by hand, more or less as Katie directed, sort of. In little rows, just dropping the seeds in by hand, as if we were sowing it in a garden, in a raised bed. And then, so that was middle of April for the first half of the seeds. I think we had about 20 varieties. The first half I got in, I would say, just at the right time. The second half, I had to get certification from our organic certifying body to allow us to use them, because they weren't grown at Gerald's last year, and Gerald's organic, and so that the first half were we planted them, they got off to a good start. That was all oats, and I think one maybe 1 week anyway. So they've grown pretty well, I think. The second lot that were delayed by 2 weeks, it was just coming into the start of the really dry period, and I mean I did hand water them once or twice, but they didn't do so well.
With the oats, have you noticed any of them growing better than others, or has there been any poor germination? Or
I think the oats are all pretty looking like they've grown well, but they've all, in this storm we had last night, they've all lodged slightly or kind of probably just blown over by the wind with the winds. But other than that, they weren't like lodged on the ground like Gerald's were last year, like some of them. So I think they've all kind of stood up quite a bit better as well. Maybe they didn't have quite so much fertility. Maybe Gerald had a bit too much fertility because it was in his veg growing area, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did have a problem with that last year. Yeah, because all of the oats that Gerald grew was in where he'd previously grown vegetables. There was too much organic matter in the soil, and because they had too much nutrients, they grew up too fast, and then they did lodge. So yeah. Are the oats flowering now? Because we've just come into August, haven't we? Are they flowering?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say they've set seed heads, and they can't be far off.
Okay.
But I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure when they will be ready. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's the next thing, is maybe we
Yeah.
take pictures and we ask advice from Gerald, because I remember last year he was showing us how to make sure the stems were like golden all the way down, but had like a little bit of green at the bottom. And then he was also biting the oats to get like the right consistency. So I guess,
Yeah.
we're coming into the crucial time for thinking about how to harvest them. And obviously, if we hadn't been in a lockdown, we'd be getting together and harvesting them together. Are you going to be able to harvest them on your own? Do you need help?
I think we will be, because I mean, welcome to have help if anyone wants to come and help, but I think we will be able to do it. I guess I'll kind of harvest them, bind them, label them, and then work out what to do next, whether you'll come and get them or somehow they get to Gerald's, or I don't know.
Well, I guess the idea is we share them with the network, and what would be really great is if we, because they will just keep once they're dried, if we could process them together at some point over the week or even in the new year, because then
Brilliant.
we can like hand thresh them and winnow them, and then maybe distribute them again so that we can grow them on more sites. And we've obviously been having these a lot of questions over how to process the oats for human consumption, and that's kind of still ongoing. And yeah, we've been to the Velengana watermill, and we've like looked at using millstones to dehull them, and we haven't quite cracked that process. And we've looked for like old dehullers, and that's like an ongoing thing that we're trying to work out. Once we've dehulled them, we need to also be able to stabilize them, because once they're dehulled they can go off. And then there's also the possibility, like some people want them to be able to roll them as well. So it's like several different processes, and we have there's people in our network who've been looking into this for like the last 2 years, and we are continuing to like follow up leads. But it's kind of crazy that we haven't got the answer. And it's like, it's not as simple as just buying an electric dehuller, because once you've dehulled them, you've got to stabilize them. So it's like, it's this exciting mystery that I really hope we're going to be able to crack, because I mean, maybe with the rare oats, we can literally grind them up in a pestle and mortar just to be able to taste them. But obviously, like you're saying, if you're going to grow a couple of acres of them, you need something else, like more efficient, a better way of doing it. So we'll have to carry on looking into that. So thanks, Rich.
Okay.
Good update. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.